Yo, yo. Yo, yo. Waifu, thank you, buddy. Thanks, man. You should be getting your shit less than a week, I think. Thank you, man. Less than a week. Ideally. I don't know if my hearing is going bad. Oh, did you really? Yeah, I actually got a bunch of the Old World books. They're like right there. Right there. I was looking at the Arcane Journal because I did buy the Orcs and Goblins one. Most likely with me doing the Orcs and Goblins. Just because I used to as well. They're pretty nice. I guess it's just akin to like a codex. So you've got artwork and painted minis and whatnot, lore. It's a little more shallow. But either way, it's pretty cool. It is pretty cool. I am fucking dead tired, man. I've just sat down for the first time all day. So fucking busy. No time for literally anything right now in life. Just cleaning, 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 organizing, organizing, cleaning, making room, sending packages out. Lots of shit to do. Well, are you talking about, like, obviously the miniatures and whatnot? Like, do you want to start building minis? Or Pogyo, buddy? I saw the trailer. I did see that, but I saw your trailer for the fucking skin. It was cool. Yes, it's good. But I mean, it's, you know, a fan-made thing. It's a little, it's janky. It's got heart, but it's a bit janky. I like it, though. The skin looks good, man. It came out good. Listen, if you need more Gangplank stuff, let me just direct it, okay? I can make it look good. Building them? Ruko, yo, buddy. If you're looking to build Warhammer minis, like, you have no tools or anything, right? I'm assuming you're starting from scratch. Warriors and Wizards Silmarillion Age. Now I'm planning to buy 4 main books in The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and Silmarillion after finishing them. Is it a good idea? I mean, if you're gonna read them, why not? I've been reading a shit ton lately. I'm in the middle of, like, is my microphone fucked up? I'm in the middle of, I think, rereading 2 books. I finished 2 brand new short stories. I'm gonna start another novella any day now, and I can finish these books. Like, every time I'm not doing something, like, typically before bed, I read for like an hour. Reading is good for you. I was going to say, if you're starting fresh into the hobby, you kind of only need, like, what? Glue? Typically Tamiya extra thin, or maybe, like, something thicker, like a GW glue. I find they're both pretty good. You need a knife. You need clippers. And I would suggest getting sandpaper. About 1,000 grit is perfect. So these things alone for building plastic minis are pretty much all you need. And, of course, I use a toothbrush just to wipe away excess plastic, like dust that you've scraped off. But this stuff alone will do everything for you. I don't suggest using like a file. I don't think it's as good as sandpaper. Not to mention sandpaper is, I guess in the long run, it's not that it's cheaper, but it's more convenient, I find. So that's what I'd be doing. This shit right here, and you're done. You can build pretty much any miniature you want. That's plastic. If you're going to build metal minis, you know, your clippers need to be... Well, these are for metal minis. First of all, they're a higher quality, and they've got dual-sided, like, shears. Because typically when it comes to certain clippers, you don't want to buy garbage clippers. These clippers right here, the GW ones, I think were like, what, $60? The God Hands were, I think, about $60 as well. Nice. Draven, thank you, buddy. Hey, finish it, bro. Don't let it sit on a shelf like I've got. When it comes to clippers, the problem with some brands is that both sides aren't sharp. So essentially what you're doing is you're clipping a piece, and it's kind of shearing it off to one side, and it's very, very, very janky. It doesn't have a clean cut. It's almost like you have to work with it a little bit. So if you are going to invest in clippers, I suggest don't use the GW ones. They've got, like... I think Tamiya makes clippers. God Hand is, I think, probably the smoothest cuts I've had ever with anything, but, like, it's so expensive. But yeah, good clippers, a blade, 1,000 grit sandpaper. If you want to get, like, a soft hobby file, you can do that. You know, Tamiya extra thin, so on and so forth. Can't you get them for $3 at Home Depot? Get what? Clippers? They're not designed for miniatures. A mini grinder, small grinder ain't good to replace sandpaper? I wouldn't say so. Like you're talking about like a Dremel tool? The old Citadel clippers? I think I like... I don't know. There's something with the new ones, man. They're garbage. They're garbage. I can't use them. Like, I've used them before, but I don't think they're that good. Like this could probably shear off just fine sometimes, but... Like, okay, great. Okay, great. It's not, like, a guaranteed thing, I find. Whereas this is just, like... Done. Either way, it's whatever your budget is. I suggest if you're going to do Warhammer, you should probably have decent tools, though. What kit is this? This was, this is an organ gun. So it's either a cannon or you can build it as an organ gun. Both kind of suck dick in the game. And since I'm building to play the game, I think the better of the two is probably the organ gun. Realistically, like the organ gun pumps out more damage, but this thing pumps out like elite / single target killing. Either way, artillery is just kind of jank shit. They look cool, but they're not the best. They are not the best. No matter what kind of hobby. Well, you want good tools. I don't know. You can use garbage tools and have it be fine, but like... Depending on your budget, I suggest if you've got the money, invest in good tools, right? If you invest in good tools, I mean, for God's sake, you're spending how much money on the hobby to begin with? If you can sit here and spend $300 on minis, you can spend $100 on tools. Of course, some people don't want to do that. That's fine. Good tools is always... Yeah, of course. I guess it also just depends on how much you're going to be doing it. If you think you're going to be in this hobby for a long time, you might as well buy good tools, you know? If you just want to try it out, buy cheapo stuff. I've had to fight Wood Elves in 2 out of 3 games in the old world, and they always snipe out my War Machines. War Machines, I don't know, they're just garbage, man. I don't like them. From what I've seen, it's more of like a mind game. Like, there is the potential that the War Machine can pop off and kill shit, but, like, in most of the battle reports I've seen, it just kind of sits there and does nothing. It's cool, but up to you. Yeah, we're having a good night. Thank you, buddy. First time I've sat down all day, so I'm hoping to have a good fucking night. You talking about Total War 40K? I've heard that it was in the works. I heard Star Wars was in the works as well. As great as those franchises are, I'm too into fantasy to care too much. I love Star Wars. I do like 40K, but there's a sort of honesty behind sword and board gaming, right? It feels like there's more heart and more soul in those universes than, like, everyone in a grand war with billions dying on the front line and not a single eye is batted, you know? I just grew up with fantasy. I grew up with, like, Lord of the Rings. Sure, I grew up with Star Wars and 40K, but I would say I still prefer sword and board. Yeah, they were going to do the World War stuff as well. See, that's interesting because what they're essentially doing, what even I said, was if you want to make a Total War game centered around shooting, you need to develop a cover system. You have to have trench warfare, terrain to interact with, vehicles to hide behind. Most of the original Total War games were just running it down mid, right? Like, there is terrain, but it's not that big of a deal. And so when you develop a game like Warhammer 40K, Total War, and 90% of the game is gunning people down, you need a cover system for it to matter. You can't play Warhammer 40K Total War with the current system of Total War. That'd be so stupid, right? You've got lines of guardsmen just shooting down fucking orcs, and there's not a single thing to hide behind. Like, so what they're going to do is develop the system for 40K, or whatever game comes first, because all of those games, what they have in common is terrain and shooting. There's so many guns in all of those things, right? Compared to, like, Warhammer Fantasy, or, like, the historical games that they've done previously where, like, formations are more of the focal point with, like, big blocks of units walking up. So I knew they'd do that. It makes sense. Make one system and adapt it to all these others with minor tweaks, right? Like, you talk about the Star Wars one, bro, you got Hoth with a bunch of, like, AT-ATs walking around, and you've got trench warfare with the fucking rebels and whatnot. Like, that'd be sick. That'd be so cool. I got off work at 7 a.m. and now it's 10:22 a.m. Books are good, man, honestly. I haven't been able to read in so long just because I haven't had access to my books, but now that I have them again, I'm kind of like going back and rereading some. Or even reading new ones, because I did buy a few books recently. Fantasy has so much more heart to it, more humanity. Like, well, you know why, though? It's because it's not this big grand setting where billions go out and die for the sake of, like, something they have never seen. You know, like, okay, that sounds like fantasy, true, like, for Gork and Mork and whatnot, but, like, humanity is more of a, I guess at a believable scale, right? In 40K, billions can die and no one cares. In fantasy, it's like, for every dwarf you lose, that's another step backwards. Like, it's... I don't know, I just... There's something about sword and board. There's a certain type of, like, honesty to it. A very personal sense of, like, grounded, you know, stakes, I guess you could say. I love it. Infinite and the Divine. Yeah, people do like that. Well, it's not even that the dwarves have that though. It's like, yeah, they do, but even like one of the lines that you could apply to anything, you know, futuristic or fantasy and whatnot, is it came from the Empire in Total War. One of the lines was, uh, I think it was like, let us fight for our right to live or something, where, you know, you've got these generic Joe Blows. I mean, even in 40K, guardsmen running around fucking doing shit, but again, there's so many of them, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got humans with swords and shields fighting fucking like 7 foot tall, super jacked, chaos infused, thick, like plate armored abominations. How do you even beat that? Right? I think, for the sake of fantasy, it's even a bigger disparity than like in 40K, because at least you have a fucking gun in 40K. In fantasy, you're sitting here looking up at a guy who's fucking 3 times your height, extremely jacked, and you've got some little dog shit dinky sword. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy. Like, they've got that stuff in 40K, but, you know, at the center of it, it's just a bunch of guns. I don't know, man. I love fantasy. It's just so cool. Well, true, the Guard are cool, but again, it's like, I think the Empire is cooler than the Guard, just for that reason of like, not all of them are walking around with a fucking las gun, followed up by 3 billion other guys in tanks, right? Like, it's just, the more you know about fantasy, the better it becomes, man. It's just so cool. Longbeard Fields versus a Necrofex Colossus, exactly. How do you deal with that in that setting? I mean, to be fair, dwarves have tanks and helicopters, but like, you know, you just kind of have to deal with it in that universe. And I guess for the sake of the Empire, it's like faith, gunpowder, and steel, right? The 3 lines. That's really it. There's no, like, I guess there's divine intervention with like the warrior priests and whatnot, you know, singing out their battle hymns and getting Sigmar to bless them and shit like that. But it's, again, it's not entirely grounded, but it's more grounded than 40K. '40K is just this insane universe where the population of the old world could die in a heartbeat and it wouldn't matter. It's like, sir, we just lost 50 billion guardsmen. What do we do? Send in 100 and make them fix bayonets. Sir, we lost all of them. What do we do? Send in 200 billion. Yeah, different setting, you know. It's cool. I'm not saying it's not, but something about it, man. Something about fantasy. Yeah, well, they don't talk about it because the Skaven are this, like, enigma. You either have seen them, or you still don't think they're real until you get, like, a blade in the back. And even if you do see them, they kind of, like, dismiss it, right? Like, oh, that was nothing. Don't worry about it. Then your livestock go missing, and your best friend who went out at night for, like, a quick smoke is missing. Forgot it's supposed to be in the water. Yeah. Well, the Necrofex is, I mean, dwarves dealing with, like, Vampire Coast. I guess there are dwarves over there, but who knows? Yeah. I just hope they get the old world going up again. Like, for what they have right now, it's not much. It's something. It's only going to get better, thankfully, but I'd love to see what the Empire comes out with, because as much as I'm not the biggest Empire fan, I used to love the minis. But I guess they're just like the baseline type of thing. It's like, if you like 40k, you probably like the Guard a little bit. If you like fantasy, you probably like the Empire a little bit. You can appreciate kind of what they are. Super baseline. Well, the Tau are kind of, in playstyle, dwarves are kind of like Tau in a way. But the way they exist in the universe, it's justifiably so. Same thing with the Tau. The Tau want to minimize losses, and they're well above like the savagery of other races. They're not going to lose bodies when they don't have to. The dwarves aren't allowed to lose bodies just because they don't reproduce like other races. They're always on the decline, right? You can't send off your sons to war and just have them go die and it's fine. It's just not going to happen. It's different if, like, the race is just full of cowards and they don't want to do anything but shoot you to death. But, like, if there's an actual reason behind it and a logical one, you know. Yeah. I mean, they aren't elves. They're not Eldar. So, if there was a race to even work with each other, you'd think it'd be, like, a bit of the Tau and the Votann anyways, right? I'm not a big 40k guy, though. Well, the Tau are... I mean, I don't know what their whole fucking grand plan is to what, like, unite the galaxy against the Tyranids or something. They're more of, like... Well, they're ran by, the Ethereals, which, I don't know, you'd have to do a bit of reading on them, but they're not supposed to be, like... They have this, like, secret plan and all this shit, so on the surface it may look legit, and then it's like, oh, what the fuck? That's what it was? Again, I don't really know my Tau lore. I'll never know my Tau lore. I don't read Tau. The one cool aspect of them, though, that I do like is the auxiliaries they've got. All of those, like, allied-in alien species that kind of join the greater good. That's cool. Like the Vespid, the Kroot, the, I think how you pronounce it is the Guevasa, the Guevesa or something. It's like the defected Imperial Guard. I think people have come around to the Tau over the years. Everyone should do everything to help each other until everyone else but us is dead. Yeah, I mean, In a galaxy like that, I assume peace will never be had unless everyone else is dead, unfortunately. Whatever it is, man, again, I don't know. I'm sure there's a Tau fanatic somewhere who knows every instance of lore and whatnot. Yeah, not their brightest move. Then again, what would you do with the Tyranids if you had never done, like, business? I mean, at that point, do they even, like, know the Tyranids? Have they fought against the Tyranids? Do they know the Tyranids are even, like, sentient to the point where they could kind of work with them? Because I have no idea. I mean, there was even one thing with, like, what, the Tau sending the fucking Dark Eldar people, and the Dark Eldar just fucked them up and experimented on them and made them into, like, grotesques and whatnot. I think that's what they're called. Like, yeah, they're pretty naive. They don't really know too much about certain races, but yeah, well, again, I can't really say much on the Tau. You'd have to go wiki that. I got no idea. The only thing I know about Tau is just bits and bobs from, like, lore videos. I have no interest in the Tau, so I just don't learn about them. I will say this, though. The classic Tau artwork and the classic Tau color scheme is way too iconic. It's super badass. They need to do more stuff with the Tyranids, though. They're the only, like, true, real alien race that has no sort of way with, like, words, you know? Like, you can converse with an Eldar and an Orc sometimes, but not really a Tyranid. They need more aliens in 40k. What type of glue? Tamiya, extra thin, and then, like, a thicker glue, so for this case, it's GW. Or I think you can also use, like, Rebel. It's like a blue bottle. Melee range because it's stupid. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, like, weird shit like that. But that's cool. Tyranids are a weird bunch. Obviously very Zerg. Well, I mean, there's a lot of like flavored things in text, and it would be cool to see a lot of that in tabletop. But who knows? Whenever you read a book or a little passage somewhere, it's like you can kind of get a glimpse into the grander scheme of things that you'd never see in tabletop. We need more things, more cool things. Weird boys. You know what I miss with the orcs is the shock attack gun. I don't know how good it is currently, but like it was so fucking RNG based. But I am completely done with the orcs. Actually, you know what? That's false. You know what I picked up today? Let me show you this. I haven't seen it yet. Well, I skimmed it. So I went to a GW today. I tried to look for the 500th version of the White Dwarf, which I did find. But I never found Grombrindle. But what I did find, because I still have my Orcs and Goblins, is I got the Orcs and Goblins Arcane Journal. And I'm very tempted. Because, like, I love the growing up, it was Orcs and Goblins, Empire, and Dwarves. And then as time went on, I kind of just said, you know what, the Dwarves are like my jam. More so than the other two. But, like, hang on. Let's go through the book a little bit. Let me just, oops. It's pretty, this is like a what? $35 book for like 60 pages? 45 pages. I mean, this alone, the nostalgia I feel for an image like this. Woo! Goblins torturing elves. You love to see it. Dude, I love how grim everything looked. Hang on. I can only imagine they're going to use a lot of the older artwork for the dwarf one as well. The Arcane Journal when it comes out. Like, looking at this artwork and then looking at, like, the initial Age of Sigmar launch, and it's just not even comparable. The initial Age of Sigmar launch was garbage looking. So childish. Wasn't drawn poorly, but, like, it was too vibrant. Yeah. Goblin Shamans. I gotta read through this. But, oh yes, the Dwarven Hammer Golem. The Hammer Tank. This was, I think, from the 8th edition rulebook. Do you like AOS more than 40k because AOS has dwarf? Yeah, I like, well, AOS is a continuation of fantasy. For that reason, I kind of probably like it more, but there's just nothing that I can latch onto right now when it comes to 40k. Like, absolutely zero. Oh! How beautiful is that, dude? Oh my god. Classic. Big old troll titties. Don't show those to your kids. Oh, they're fighting the dwarves, eh? Pretty sure the pony's going to have rules. Somebody said in a leak that if you take the pony, the unit gains blasting charges because it's part of a mining unit, which it's weird because there's no miners here. It's quarrelers and, like, dwarf thunderers, but there are no miners. Interesting. I love this. So much good nostalgia. Well, yes and no. Like, sure, 40K has orcs and whatnot, but, like, it's not the same. It's not sword and board. Yeah, I gotta read through this, though. The classic stone trolls. So good. I wasn't really a fan of the classic, like, river trolls, but I guess they're alright. I remember this artwork. I think this is Karl Kopinski? One of them. How fucking brutal is that, eh? This guy's getting thrown up on and he's just melting. Way too good. See what I mean by how fucked up? Like, okay, great. They have this in 40K too, but how do you deal with this? As a bunch of state troops, like men of the Empire with halberds and spears, how do you defeat this? How does that, like, you just shoot it to death? What do you do? Like, there's no way this is dying. Characters, troll hags. Wait, was that a black orc chariot? Black orc boar chariot is a unit? Really? Chromo, thank you, buddy. Bro, they got black orc boar chariots. That's new. It's completely new. Yeah, there you go. Representing this unit in your game. A black orc boar chariot can be easily represented by replacing the crew of the orc chariot with black orcs. So they're actually allowing you to create your own shit. They would never do this. New Games Workshop would never do this. Never. They would never say make your own shit and it's part of the rules. That's cool. I don't know how relevant a Black Orc boar chariot is, but, like, it as an idea is cool. I mean, to be fair, they do have 2 new characters in this book. One of them has a mini, the other one does not. So I'm not really surprised that they'd give you something like that. So the first character is Kicknick Toofsnatcha, and there is no model for him. He's just a goblin on a chariot, I think. A goblin war boss. Anyways, cool. Yep. Well, I mean, they've also said, like, you can do unit fillers and whatnot. I want to get into Warhammer so bad. We'll start, dude. Well, I mean, you shoot the shit out of things you can't poke to death, right? Typically. I don't think a bunch of Empire men are going to run up to a troll and, like, try to beat it to death. Waiting for an actual model for Foot of Gork. Well, ages ago, they had the fucking giant, the Fallen Giant template. I still have mine. I don't want to just collect them. I want to learn how to play. Well, I mean, just start with something, though. It's like, are you going to play 40K? Are you going to play Age of Sigmar? Are you going to play Fantasy? I'll tell you right now, you can never go wrong with a basic box of troops. Like, every army needs a backbone, and that is the backbone of the army. You need bodies on the field. 40K? Well, that's super easy to get into. Mm. Warhammer's kind of a thing where, like, no matter what you buy, it's probably decent in a game. Not, like, completely dog shit unplayable. You know, you can still use it. I will be, yeah. I'm not really big on Space Marines, but I did play Space Marine 1, and that game was sick. Dwarves for the old world. Well, if you like Space Wolves, you'll probably like dwarves. Yeah, aesthetically. The multiplayer, I just want to see if it looks like Gears of War. You can use an electric, like, pin drill. You don't need anything like I've got this, a sonic scrubber, which I've used before to clean minis, but not often. Like, the toothbrush is enough. When it comes to resin, you got to wash it, and so the sonic scrubber is kind of better for that stuff. The players will flee and leave their figures behind. Is that true? I thought that was at an anime convention. The hustle is real. This is an organ gun, yeah. So when the new kit comes back, it'll be a cannon or an organ gun because they gave you the components to build both, except you cannot magnetize it. You have to build one or the other. That's the way it was set up. Like, either way, I'm eventually just going to have all of them. Like, I've got every kit, pretty much ever made, for the last, like, what? I don't know, 15 years? 15 years of, like, releases or something? Oh, 20, no, longer than 15 years. We're what, 2024? Oh, yeah, for over 20 years. So I'd love to build the shittier war machines like the Grudge Thrower or the fucking, like, Bolt Thrower. You got the Flame Cannon, you got the Cannon, you got the Organ Gun. Cool stuff, but in game, oof. It seems like artillery is kind of just like a waste of points. But cool, you know, nothing wrong with looking at cool minis. That's the point of the game. You're not here to just exclusively win, you know? You want to look at great stuff. Good song. Oh, they're all good songs. Yeah, there's a bunch of resources online, honestly. Again, if you're really just getting into the hobby just to play the game, maybe you'll want to do research, but like if you want to be more of a casual and just kind of enjoy everything, you can't go wrong buying anything. Like if you want to start any 40k army, go buy like an HQ model or and a box of troops, or like a start collecting thing. I don't know what it's called right now, but starting out with a variety of units is always fun, just because you can kind of like see different kits, different types of units, like a vehicle or an elite, basic troops, HQ. Yeah, Drakes and Breakers are pretty cool. They come in the same kit, though, so if you buy one, you get both. And I'm pretty sure when they get re-released, so right now, currently, you can only buy 10 of them per box. They were only ever offered in 10s. When they get re-released for the old world, you're going to get 20 per box. I hate how hard it is to get a Battle Force box. Is it just because it's sold out? I gotta get bases right now. That's what I'm after. I'm after those 50 by 50. So I think what I'll do is wait for the old world to get their dwarf releases, and then I'll put an order in for overpriced bases. Yeah. 20 per box, I must have them. It's 20 per box, but you're gonna pay the full price of 20 of them. Right? The Hammerers are gonna be in 20s. Iron Drakes are gonna be in 20s. Longbeards are gonna be in 20s. Warriors are in damn near 40, I believe. I think 40. Or it's like 38. I think it's like 16. Is that 38? Sorry, my math is bad. The fact that 32. Jesus. Holy shit, I'm brain dead now. I just got my income tax return. I'll cover it. Yeah. Have fun with that, dude. I'm getting into painting, and I just bought my first orc set. That's cool. I used to do orcs. I think the coolest thing about playing and painting orcs is that nothing has to be perfect, and it looks better when it's not. Because when you go from something like orcs to dwarves or dwarves to orcs, it's drastically different. You could even say like Tau. Tau to orcs is night and day. You've got people that literally live in garbage and wield garbage compared to, you know, top of the line, pristine, clean-cut armor and weaponry. Yep. It's a very forgiving army, but, like, that's also the appeal to orcs. You know, not everyone likes these, like, perfectly clean, you know, delicate pieces of armor with, like, the most immaculate fucking targeting systems and whatnot with their weaponry. Orcs are just crude. Everything about them is very blunt. Warhammer seems interesting from an outside perspective. You need a lot of things like friends. Not really. You could just go into a store and play with people. You could play online. You definitely do not need friends to play Warhammer. But that's a good thing, yeah. It's good to have. One thing, I'll tell you right now, if you ever get interested in orcs, you should try making your own stuff with styrene. It's the stuff train modelers use to make like their own, or any sort of modeling, like advanced modeling. You essentially scratch build your own stuff, or what you can do with styrene is you can use it on pre-existing bits and create cabs and hoods of fucking cars, and pretty much anything you want, as long as you've got an imagination and like decent skills in cutting things out. That's such a good part of playing orcs, is just creating anything you want. And you really can create anything you want. No one's gonna bat an eye. Orcs are like that. And in a way, dwarves are like that as well. It's not very lore-friendly to have dwarves with a bunch of, like, janky machines on the field, but with kind of how their guilds work and, you know, them being able to create stuff, you could have a few things. No, models. You can make models. I used to make buggies with different kits, styrene sheets, plastic toys. I used to make things called Shinorks, which were essentially like orc troop carriers, little helicopters. I made grot tanks, goblin tanks. I made a Squigoth, this big giant like fucking fungi beast that had a howdah on its back, and like orcs were popping shots off of it. You could create anything you want, man. Like orcs, in terms of hobbying, are one of the best, if not like the best. And it's legal. You can bring it in and say, this is a tank, and it could look like a fucking wheeled garbage can. And they'd be like, that's cool. That's an orc tank. So a big part of the hobby is making your own minis, if you're an orc player. If you were to do that with like a different race, you know, you'd have to be precise. Everything has to be cut to scale. The rivets have to be perfect. Minimal wear and tear. And then when you're making something orky, you just run it over with your car, fucking spit on it, smash it to bits, grind it down to powder, and then like fucking glue it all back together, and it looks good. No one's made a Kitbash Thunderbarge from Total War yet. There was a group of people. There was a streamer. A lot of people who like dwarves are Spanish. I've seen a few Spanish people on like Facebook groups or on Twitch. They love dwarves. And someone did make a Thunderbarge, and I was there on their stream watching it, and oh my god, completely scratch built. It came from... Hang on. If I can find it. You know, I don't think it's here, and I'm getting angry. I think it's actually gone. Dude, this thing was so cool. I took pictures of it, if it's still here. Nope. Damn. I swear I had it somewhere, but I guess I don't. Nowhere. I didn't get Grombrindle. I tried to get him today. I was only able to get the fucking White Dwarf and like the coin because I bought a few books. I was quoted 4 months for a made to order straight from Games Workshop, and I said no. No, sir. Would getting a sub expedite a ban request? Who got banned? I didn't ban anyone. I haven't even been able to stream. For like a week I've been off and on. I'm just too busy. 3. I mean, 3 is just DLC. All of the Warhammer Total War games are just there to be bought and played together. Like, I don't really care about the campaign too much, so I don't play it. But, like, for the sake of multiplayer, 3 is the best. Because you get all the DLC. Everything is kind of updated. I mean, even if it was campaign, people would still say 3. Because 3, you get the entirety of Immortal Empires, right? And you know what? I don't think even for a second I looked at Total War 1, 2, or 3 as standalone games, even though they can be. I've never thought of them that way. For something like Warhammer that just doesn't exist. Multiplayer, yeah, they did the whole domination thing, which is good. It's healthier for the game. For sure. So you can't get draw-kited. Well, I'd be getting all 3 of them, if you can. Everything Warhammer is just fucking expensive, bro. The games are expensive. The books are expensive. The hobby's expensive. The glue's expensive. The paint's expensive. The air you breathe in the Games Workshop is expensive. It's a very premium hobby. I like the art in 2 more. I've got the art book. You want to see the art book for that game? There's some good old inspiration in that. Yeah, I can go get it in a sec. All right, let me go get it. Yeah, they made a lot of art books in the past, but this was the only one they had put out for Warhammer Total War. And there was like 2 editions of it. There was the signed hard copy one that I got because it was like among the first 200 people to order or something. And then they made the standard one, which is the same thing, but not as fancy. So this Warhammer Total War, the art of the games. They say games plural, so like you get them all. Oh, this is 3. Okay. I remember looking through it when I had first got it, and then I put it on a shelf and forgot about it. The art of the games. Ruko, peace, buddy. Take it easy, man. So we don't care about... Ooh, you want to see a naked Slan? Before you go, take a look at this bad boy. Oh, God! Cover your eyes. Peak male physique. Jesus. Beautiful. The dwarven stuff in this game was sick, though. Peak male physique. Yeah, techless, elves. 99% sure. Creepshade, thank you, buddy. Also, Crash Bandicoot, thanks, man. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, the art in this is very cool, and you don't necessarily get, like, there were people who worked on this game who had art stations, and they'd post a lot of the artwork on those art stations, but I'm noticing... Space, thanks, man. I'm noticing that in this, there's a lot of art that wasn't on the art stations. So, hang on. Malachi is not in this book, though. None of the Thrones of Decay DLC. Hang on. I think the Dowie are, like, at the beginning. Yeah, Empire Dwarves. Dude. Dowie. Ungrim. A sketch of Ungrim. A sketch of Thorgrim. There's Snorri. Grombrindal. Hammerers. Hammerers were always cool. I think everyone likes those. Dwarven Engineer. It's kind of a... You want to see more naked people? There you go. What a... Don't ban me. It's fake. He's not even nude, bro. It's a dwarf. So you get more Slayers and gyrocopter pilot right there. More engineers, or rather cannon crew, war machine crew. Dwarf warrior beards and whatnot. Jesus Christ, talk about a... I mean, this guy looks like fucking Theoden with worm tongue in his ear. Oh, Jesus. Dwarf miner. Yeah, this shit's cool. Some hold artwork. And then the main page of the dwarves in the game. The big artwork of Thorgrim coming out of Korazakrak. Gyrocopter. I mean, this is just stuff you've seen in the game, right? Like Anvil of Doom, Organ Gun. Yeah, this is stuff you've seen in the game. So there's not much here, but when you've got every race represented, there's quite a bit. So I'd fuck with it more, but it's very inconvenient. Tab open. If only the sieges look like anything similar to the art. Well, the siege mechanics are just weird, man. The way the siege mechanic works, it's just inconvenient either way. There was also, they had an Age of Reckoning book, so the MMO, when it had come out a while ago, they had a collector's edition, and there's a lot of concept art in that game. Weird, like, dwarven fucking flying machines and all these other crazy things that were supposed to be in the game. There's another art book that has, like, all of the older Warhammer Fantasy pieces in it. Like, art's cool, but you don't get to see half of it anymore because it's old. And that doesn't mean it's bad, it's just not the in thing, which is crazy. What I'm interested in, though, is when they do release the Dwarf Arcane Journal, they're going to be doing more artwork for it. Same thing with the box arts for, like, all of the Old World releases. There will be more dwarf art, kind of like on the front cover. So that's going to be cool. It's just really good to see fantasy again. Yeah, these are organ guns, so they go like that. I'm still cleaning them up, so they're not, like, perfect yet, but yeah. I don't know how often I will use organ guns, but I think 1 to 2 of them in a game shouldn't be that bad. It's not, like, the best use of points, but if you want to run artillery, I think it's, like, a better option. Yep, Total War did. Total War is the reason Warhammer the Old World's even a thing. You know what's interesting, though? I feel like, come to think of it now, I feel like the Old World would have come out anyways. I don't want to say that for certain, but, like, you have such a good thing with the Horus Heresy, where it's before what everyone knows, right? 40K. And you've supported it, you've got minis, so on and so forth. It's great. Warhammer Fantasy is basically that to the old world. So having 2 games set in each setting, but in different time periods, and having like similar but different miniatures, you just got more money coming in. You use Tamiya thin, and then you'll clean them up with like sanding and putty. Because the biggest thing here is when you glue stuff like this, you never want to use super thick glue, because the thick glue will show, and you can scrape it down once it's dry. But it's better to use something thin so it kind of just seeps into the cracks, and it's minimal cleanup, right? So like as an example, when I do get to gluing this, I think what I'll do is maybe wrap it in like an elastic band and then spot glue into it. So like 1 dot there, 1 dot there, 1 dot there, 1 dot there type of deal. You don't need to glue the entire thing. And then, you know, if you have any excess over, you just scrape it off. Stuff like that. Like, I've overglued things. People have put way too much glue on whatever. I think it's just kind of being aware of what you're doing. Like, again, you don't need to slather on fucking glue. A little dot of glue melts the plastic together. You don't need that much. You gonna sell your bathwater one day? Bro, you come here every day and give me disease. You make my eyes not want to be opened. But no, I'm not. Struggling to figure out how to properly clean those. You're working on an organ gun right now? I thought you had no old world. Like, your best bet in doing anything like this is just glue it together and then take sandpaper and, like, go... or not even sandpaper. You can literally fit your knife into here, and you're just going to kind of scrape it down so it's flush. That's it. But I think what I will be doing is puttying everything. So, like, even if there's a little bit of a crack, I'm not looking at it. It just looks ugly to me. Subjectively, of course. Monday Night Combat. Dude, I gotta show you the fucking poster I won. I won a poster. We came first place in the only tournament they had, and the only tournament prize was fucking posters signed by the entire dev team. I am him. I have that poster. Well, I have to go find it. I don't think it's in this room. They certainly handled their tournaments much better than AVP did. In AVP, I got disqualified for being Canadian, and my whole team lost their money. Yeah, it is what it is, bro. Unlucky. At least they didn't do us dirty. Yep, a long time ago. It was, okay, to be fair, they said, okay, Americans only can enter. You need a U.S. residence. And I was Canadian, so... And we made it to the finals. And what ended up happening was they did like an investigation on me. Or the enemy team snitched or something. And what ended up happening was it was down to the wire in like semis or something. Or it was like a best of, I think it was like a best of 3. I don't know. And one of the enemy players essentially had said I was cheating. He's like, oh, this guy's got a fucking modded controller. Refs, check on this guy. Go check him out. And since they couldn't prove anything, they had to kick me out of the game. They also kicked him out of the game, so they made it a 4v5. Or, sorry, a 4v4 instead of a 5v5 in the finals. And we ended up losing in the finals because I wasn't there. What I would do in games was the equivalent of 1v5ing in League of Legends. I was getting, in the finals, I was getting like back-to-back pentakills. Like 1v5 Marine. And we ended up losing 49-50 because I wasn't there. And then afterwards, the enemy team snitched or they found out or something, and I turned out to be Canadian, and so they disqualified my whole team. So not only was I kicked out because they thought I was cheating, but then they fucking disqualified me because I was Canadian, and my entire team lost money. And to be fair, Americans only, I'm a Canadian. Oh, fuck off. Right? I was like 15 years old, 16 years old. Whatever. They didn't talk to me again after that. Good times. I miss those days. I was such a loser. But like the competition was so fierce. Everyone was so toxic. I do miss it. Yeah, I mean, a guy literally said I was cheating because I was whooping his ass, and he couldn't take losing, so we both got fucking kicked out. Pong. Yeah, and Pong. Well, that was the, I mean, I'm not going to say anything different about that. Every competitive game early 2000s, mid 2000s was like everyone's saying every word in the book. Like lobbies were bad, but like that's the culture and it is what it is. Yeah, it was an interesting time. I don't know about that. I think you just have to stop giving a fuck and people won't care as much about being toxic to you, you know? You just gotta chill. Bateman Online gets a lot of viewers. Yeah. That's entertainment, buddy. That's life. $200. What are you on about, bro? You guys are just making up my fucking lore? That's my lore? I've just done everything. We should write a book. The True Adventures of Tobias Fate. Everything based in factual, real-world events. Not dramatized one bit. Ivern mid. Ivern's actually a solo laner, though. Because when I played Ivern mid, he was melee. Dog shit. I could play him now and do well. He was completely unplayable as a mid laner, only because he was melee. Now that he's fucking ranged, shit's so much easier. Primordial Ooze Diff. Yeah. I've been there for a while. Are you sure we're not getting my lore mixed up with Trick's lore, considering he's like 3 billion times older than I am? I think that might be the case. I feel like this is going to take a long time to finish. A lot of the older Warhammer Fantasy kits are very janky just because the way they were made, like the whole casting process wasn't as tight-knit as they have it now. There's a lot of like excess mold lines and plastic and sharp parts of the model that shouldn't be there. Yeah. Essentially what I do is I cut it down as far as I can without gashing the model. So like as an example right there, you can see it's a little bit raised in the camera. There's nothing more I should try and do with the blade. If anything, I can kind of like scrape over it a little bit, maybe give it like a side like that. But realistically, the blade gets like 95 and then the sandpaper just smooths it out completely. Yeah. If you want it to be perfect like that, that's what I would do. It's the best way to kind of make sure things aren't fucked up. But like, as an example, that looks pretty ugly. This is not done. This is not done. So, like, what you could do realistically as well is glue this together, and then since you've got the whole barrel to work with, you can kind of sand it down then, which makes more sense because if you sand one side down, it's too much. You glue it, and then the other side's kind of uneven. So most of like the surface bits, I'll be getting as clean as I can, and then just gluing it as is, and then going back in. Bro, this guy just keeps going. No, I don't do painting services. Me and Ivana did like a bunch of Alexanders from Elden Ring that we sold, but that's about it. I have no time for that shit. I have no time for commission anything. Like, I'm not even... I shouldn't even be on this channel as much as I am right now with how busy I am. What I would love to do is sit down and stream on both channels all day, and that's just not feasible right now. This channel has no emotes. Yeah, it's a little bit scuffed. It'll get better. Jesus Christ. Yo, give this guy a 20-minute. Give this guy a 20-minute. Get him out of here. No, I didn't play any League today. This is the first time I've sat down. And if this is the first time I've sat down, I don't think I want to play League at like midnight, you know? I'm just too busy right now with what's going on in life, and we are working at it. We're getting there. He doesn't learn. Some people don't want to learn. I don't blame them. I wonder, when it comes to making these things, they're supposed to be on 50 by 50 square bases, like the actual organ gun itself. But I want to try and do like a diorama. Because the problem with these basing sizes is that look at all these cool bits you get. A wheelbarrow with an ancestor face in it. Like, come on. Get a little telescope so the engineer can kind of like pan out where to aim the beast. You've got shells. Like, really? That's cool. Right? Cannonballs. Like, there's nowhere to put these bits on any of the bases if you do 50 by 50. 0 places. Anywhere. So, like, I think what people were doing is that they would make a diorama base kind of big. They would cut a square 50 by 50, put the organ gun, and then you have all that excess space to kind of put your bits and bobs, and then you'd have, like, your crew behind it. Or you just say, fuck that, and you put everything on one base, you glue it down, and, you know, you deal with people who think that's cheating. or whatever they may think. Kind of weird for people to think that way, but it is what it is. Buy 400 wheelbarrows, and make a mech suit out of them. Yeah, you could do that. The Engineers Guild special. The super ancient Dowie tech from the War of Vengeance. We'll see, though. If I can muster up, like, enough willpower to finish this thing, I would like to see what a diorama would look like. It's been a while since I've done anything unit filler or, like, fun. It's been many a year. Okay. No matter how bad this looks, I'm only going to be getting as much as I can right now, and then I'll come back to it much later. I just want the majority of it cleaned so I don't have to sit here for 30 years and just work on one piece. And I think right now that's well good enough. So these two will be finished later into the pile. So we need this. Unless I worked on that? I already worked on that. There really isn't much left. I think that's mostly it. Got those. I got this. I'm missing this crank. It's a little crank. There really isn't... There aren't many pieces to the War Machines. Compared to the gyrocopter, that's like an absolute fucking nightmare. This thing's pretty simple. But then again, I guess the gyrocopter did come out a few years later. As a plastic kit. At the tail end of, like, 8th edition. Yeah, this is a organ gun. So the kit allows you to build a cannon or an organ gun, and then you've got, like, 3 crew member that kind of, like, huddle around it. So that is kind of what we are building. And I say building as in, like, I'm more so cleaning up every piece so that I can glue as much as I can together and then come back at it at a later date when I'm putting together the army and putty everything at the same time. Because I really don't want to bust out, like, the putty every week for one thing. I'd rather do it all at the same time. And then work on it over a few days, trying to get everything good. Cut them out and slot them into the base. Yeah. The Lord of the Rings stuff is awesome. I gotta go back and make my Lord of the Rings stuff. I've been tempted so badly. It's the latest thing I painted was a Lord of the Rings dwarf. And it wasn't even like the old metal ones. This is just like a generic plastic dwarf. But I want to go back and do more of them. But the metal ones instead, because those are cool. Well, it's very simple. The Lord of the Rings stuff is extremely simple. Little to no building. Paint jobs are always, like, super easy. My Lord of the Rings dwarves are going to be on, or rather, they're going to be based on nostalgia. Because that was the one thing that got me started with minis and dwarves, so I want to kind of honor what got me into the game in the first place. And they're cool. So as an example, oh my god, it's the guy again on a different account. Jesus Christ. This is the number one thing that got me into dwarves. Realistically, was the Shadow and Flame supplement, which was like the downfall of Moria. With the Balrog. And it's shit like this that when you see it, how can you not love dwarves? Like, oh my god. It's so badass. But this is kind of what I wanted to do. They give you a really terrible painting guide, but you know what? It's nostalgia. That's kind of what this was based on. Like, they had a really mustardy, dirty-looking boot, I guess, but I tried to base my scheme off of this. I could have maybe made the sleeves black. I probably should have. You know, come to think of it, I should have, because all the sleeves are black. Actually, no, they're not. This one's not. And the green's a little bit darker, but, like, I don't know, man. It was a practice thing. It was nothing. But I do want to go back and, like, paint these, because I've got all the sculpts. In my youth, I painted a shit ton of them, but every Lord of the Rings bit is gone. So these, to me, are the greatest dwarf sculpts. Well, more so because of nostalgia. You have to kind of bend them back into place, obviously, but it's just a simplistic dwarf warrior. It doesn't want to be anything else. It's happy with what it is. It's a dwarf with a shield and an axe. Or a great axe. I love it. Super cool. And then, of course, oddly enough, you've got archers, but it's Lord of the Rings, so, okay. Yeah, the Perry brothers did these. That's why they're so good. Super fucking good. For me, the most iconic dwarf stuff that I've personally been in. Or, like, messed with. It was called The Ruination. I didn't read it, no. I only read things that pertain to things that I like. The Ruination has nothing to do with Bilgewater. It's how, like, Camivore fell and Vigo's reign and whatnot. What happened to Callista, Hecarim, and everyone over there. The Blessed Isles. The Sauron sculpt is amazing, and it still holds up. And I remember having that sculpt, too, back in the day. Which I believe was also a Perry Brothers sculpt. I could be wrong. Maybe I am. But they did a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. Do you have a water chicken cookbook? I should make one. I should sell it. Oh, if you're going to post... Oh, that's different. Never mind. Yeah, post it in the Discord, man. I mean, the mace, it's a metal mini, right? That shit never came straight. That never came straight. But it's cool. You know? The joy of miniatures is, as fun as it may be to put something together, it's also the idea of, like, fixing them and, you know, sanding and filling gaps and whatnot. Like, that is satisfying. And there is a sense of accomplishment when you've done it because it's not something everyone does. Makes the mini feel more complete, you know, personally. Ailstorm. No, sorry, it's Skalmold. Skaldmold. No, Skalmold. Skalmold. Because Ailstorm took on one of their songs, and they took on one of Ailstorm's songs. Back in, like, what? I think it was Sunset of the Golden Age. Oh, Skalmold's just such a good band, period. I mean, in my opinion, Skalmold's a better band than Ailstorm, but, you know. To each his own. They're all good, though. Oh, yeah, I see the Sauron. That's cool. I remember having that mini with, like, a seal door and fucking, what's his name on the ground? Yeah, that's iconic. Lord of the Rings is just pure nostalgia, man. Like, not even the movies, but, like, the minis for me. I'm on the Warhammer website, and it's talking about Warhammer TV and shows and stuff. So Warhammer Plus is their own streaming service. I pay for it. I've been using it. Try it for a month. That's all I'm going to say. I would suggest it for 1 month and then cancel it. Watch everything, binge everything. I don't think there's frequent uploads to make it really worth it, but it is better from where it was at one point, which it had nothing. So I need to paint my Belrog. I wish I still had my painted Belrog. I finished that shit in a weekend as a child. I'm just like, fucking slap paint on, paint the base gray. You know, I actually do have... Wait. I think I do have a bit from, like, Lord of the Rings that I still have that was painted, but I don't think it's in this room. I think it's actually in a bin in the garage. Pariah Nexus. That one was amazing. Pariah Nexus was actually very good. I feel like it was made by the guy who did Astartes. It really felt quality. Out of all the shows, that one had, like, the look, the effort, the money. Like, yeah, that was a good one. Very well done. I mean, if you want to get people into Warhammer, show them Astartes and show them Space Marine. Show them the Total War cinematics. Those are good, too. You could do a bunch of that stuff. People love it. I feel like if you're into sci-fi or fantasy or anything like that, Warhammer is so easy to get into, but not as a hobby. Like, you can take a pretty good interest in it. It's just not everyone can kind of, like, get into the hobby for obvious reasons. The other guy was not my account. I would never ask such a horrendous question. Yeah. You're probably also Tarek Gaming. The third-person game coming out is what piqued my interest. That's, yeah, Space Marine. Space Marine, dude, Space Marine looks amazing. I don't give a fuck about the Astartes. Fuck the Emperor. Fuck the chapters. I don't care. But that shit looks amazing. I was never a big Space Marine fan, but, like, that is amazing. It looks so good. She's not super big in the mini aspect? Yeah. I mean, even Ivana, my girlfriend, is into some of the minis. She played games with me, but she's not going to read the lore. Those games were short-lived. Who would play Tarek? Puke. Yeah, okay. Moria was so sick. I never wanted Moria to end. I love that shit so much. Even if it was janky, it had so much soul. But in a sense that, like, it was fun to play with people, you know? I'm a Vel'Koz enjoyer. I see. Are you an AZAP Tier 3 Patreon sub? Are you part of the Squid Squad? The Squids? Pallet? Yeah, I literally stacked pallets for days just to quit the game. Like, that shit looks so awesome, and the only thing I did was just never go back to it. If they ever decide to come out with good DLC, I guess the Pallet Kingdom will be reborn, but, like, not anytime soon. I had a few Star Wars minis, like 3D printed stuff. I was supposed to be playing, what's that Star Wars game? Not Shatterpoint. Um, there's a Star Wars game that came out, and I was supposed to be proxying, I think it was Crimson Dawn, Legion. I was supposed to be proxying Crimson Dawn with the Hut clans, like Jabba's goons, because that's my shit. I had the sculpts. I bought them off Etsy, and the fucking guy had, like, the worst scaling problems I've ever seen. I had, like, characters who are the size of, like, Jawas be the size of Wookiees. Like, he didn't know what he was doing. He really did not. Isn't that peak dwarf to horde for no particular reason? It was. Yeah, it was. But now it just sits there doing nothing. No, Moria was sick. Fucking get lost in, like, Dwarodel for, like, 30 years. Trying to figure out where the fuck to go. It's like trolls hanging around and goblins in every passageway. Crimson Dawn is the huts. I may steal that. I mean, there's a ton of proxy minis. Like, that's what I was doing. Because I only really care about the Hut clan. They're not a bunch of good people, but, you know, I like them. Jabba's gang. I don't think I had dinner. I don't think I ate anything. Well, I'm gonna be ending here soon. I'm so busy during the day, man. Like, I think after this, I gotta end. I gotta go clean out my living room and my kitchen. I probably will get dinner. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not many of them left. Um, and I mean, like the most prominent one in the films was Jabba and Jabba's dad, and then you had like the twins in Boba Fett. They didn't do anything. Come to think of it, no one in that show did anything. The show got just, it went nowhere. I think the biggest thing though is that like when it comes to the Hutt clan, it's the menagerie of like the most fucked up weird aliens out there, right? Like the whole reason George wanted this big Jabba the Hutt scene, his palace off on Tatooine and in some isolated little fucking nook of the planet, was he wanted to make it feel like the cantina. So the guy just put in a bunch of like super weird creatures, and they're all scumbags, right? So it works. Every single character in that palace is pretty much unique outside of like a few Gamorreans or Klaatu's and whatnot. But they're weird, man. They're really weird. And they're cool. Sometimes you just want to make something cool, and then out of that spawns a million more ideas. Yeah, they got that money. Why do you think they're so successful? Yeah, exactly, the Rancor. Patissa was his name. And there was actually stories, there was 2 books, well, they're no longer canon. I think one of them is. There was a few stories about the Rancor and like Malachi, the Rancor keeper, or Malakili. Malachi's the fucking dwarf. The old expanded universe one was that he was trying to smuggle out the Rancor because Jabba was just using it as like sport, right? He treated it like complete crap, and well, there was a whole bit behind it, but essentially what had happened was Malakili, I believe he had got information to Jabba's rival, and in return, he was going to be sent a barge to kind of like get the Rancor out and him because they were bros. He knew the Rancor since birth, like grew up with him, trained with him, loved him. And as the barge was kind of like pulling up, Luke Skywalker showed up to the palace, and then that's kind of how the story ended. Right? We all know what happens when Luke shows up in Return of the Jedi. So it's cool that it plays into like the movie. It's the stuff you didn't see, whether or not you still believe it's canon or just a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. There's a lot of stories written about stuff like that. A lot of Palace characters had books, or not books, but short stories. Fuck, they're still doing comics about Max Rebo. Max Rebo's haunted by like his dead teacher. Bro got gunned down in the street for just being there because he's on fucking Nar Shaddaa. Yeah, the old legend stuff is cool. I mean, the new stuff is supposedly canon. I don't know if it's as good, but Hunting Vader, all that shit's cool, man. Star Wars past the movies is very, very lively, right? There's a lot of heart behind it. It's not always just watch the movie and that's it. Like, you got to read the books, you got to go after the comics, you got to just figure that shit out as well if you want to enjoy it more, I guess. Glup Shido is the best Star Wars character. I don't know who that is. Bro, is that even a real character? Any short stories about Tusken Raiders? Yeah, watch the Book of Boba Fett. Well, it's what makes the money. They focus on the money makers. Oh, it's a joke about returning characters that nobody knows. I swear to God, I've heard that before, like that term, but I don't know, man. I was at a tabletop store a couple of weeks ago playing MTG with my buddy, and I learned that they have a Star Wars card game too. Yeah, they do. They've got Star Wars everything, bro. Pre-painted fucking miniature game, not pre-painted miniature game, card game, video game, books. I mean, this is Star Wars they're talking about. Fucking crazy. Big money in Star Wars. Lots of old people. Big nostalgia. I will be watching The Acolyte. I'm not really so the number one show I wanted to love was the Book of Boba Fett, because again, that's up my alley. The bounty hunters, the underworld, Tatooine, Jabba's palace, Boba Fett. Pilot dog shit. The greatest thing to come out of Star Wars in many years was Andor. And I think having seen Andor, I don't have high hopes for most shows. You know, like I've seen the trailer for The Acolyte. It looks okay. I'll give it a watch, but I'll still probably just be like, yeah, Andor's the best. Why can't you be more like Andor? Why did they make a show about a guy nobody fucking cares about, and it's better than any show ever made about actual characters people like? Like, the fact that Obi-Wan was so, like, bleh. Boba Fett was so bleh. Half the shows are just bleh, and they've got these big fucking, like, turbo trillion-dollar characters. It's like, man, what are you doing? And you have Cassian Andor, who? And the show's amazing. That's crazy. They should have given the reins to, like, those guys who fucking made that. Maybe. Yeah, the Acolyte is it'll you know who's in the Acolyte? Is the guy who was in fucking Squid Game. It's the Squid Game guy. He's a Jedi. Squid Jedi. So we'll see. You know who I want to see return to Star Wars? Samuel Jackson. Can we please get fucking Mace Windu back? Please? Like his death was never really shown. Like, this is Disney, they can do anything they want, and it works perfectly to bring him back. That'd be fucking awesome. Ian McGregor to replay Obi-Wan and the show was mid as hell. Yeah, it was pretty garbage. I didn't like Obi-Wan. I feel like whenever they have big named characters that they know kids are going to know and want to watch, they play that shit so safe and it just becomes so boring and watered down. Like, how the fuck are you going to take Boba Fett and try to make him, like, turbo relatable without, like, any inkling of his past? And he's just this, like, subdued, overweight, like me, subdued, overweight Joe Blow, right? Like, this is Boba Fett, man. This is the guy you'd call for your troubles. They seem to just play it way too safe. Take a beloved character and, like, water them down in the show and make them just boring. Again, I love Star Wars, but, like, Obi-Wan just wasn't exciting. Boba Fett wasn't really exciting. Not to mention half the shit they do in the shows are just like, yeah, okay. They never confirmed Mace Windu died after being yeeted out the window. I don't think they did. Yeah. I don't believe he's dead either. And also, Mace Windu's a fan favorite, so, like, why not bring him back? What's the problem? Mace is my second favorite Jedi. They will bring back anyone for money. Yeah, it's Disney. They'll bring them back and then fuck the character up and make them too relatable for no reason. Don't you guys want to relate to a gun for hire who goes around doing like the worst heinous shit ever because he gets paid? Don't you want to relate to that? Doesn't matter how many people you've killed as long as you can just have a sense of family and stop killing. Your past don't matter. But either way. Exactly. If fucking Darth Maul could be chopped in half and thrown down a giant shaft into just a bunch of garbage and then somehow will himself to have a giant spider-like body, like, what the fuck? Mace Windu can't do that? Jedi Master Mace Windu? Yeah. Just gets shocked and then thrown out a window and he dies? I mean, to be fair, those Jedi that take on Palpatine are just so delulu. The choreography where he, like, hops over them and they're like... And then they get cut down, like, without even trying. Yeah, it's a little goofy. I guess he is a different species. That's true, though, to be fair. Yeah, so much for the Jedi Master. Exactly. Like, they're not even trying to kill him. They're just dying. Mace was the only one with common sense. The rest of I go rewatch the scene, bro. People are like, dude, Revenge of the Sith is the best, and it is very good. It's probably the best, prequel movie. But that scene, oi, a little bit of a chuckle. A little bit of a chuckle. Okay, after this album, which is going to end in about 6 minutes, I'm going to end here. I mean, everything, you need a little bit of comic relief here and there. Not everything needs to be so bleak and, depressing. I do like comic relief. There is a time for seriousness, but also a time for a little bit of a laugh. They need to bring back the prequel fight scene choreography. It was good. It was very good. Mace Windu Is he can siphon dark side power. Yeah, that's right, eh? Mace Windu was kind of like in the balance of both or something like that. I do remember reading that somewhere or hearing it. Well, it's also the it's just the choreography, man. Like the person who's in charge of that stuff is just he's like, "Hey, put on the clown shoes and just dance around." You know, you're a Jedi. We'll make it work. Just throw everything on the green screen, right? I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen Ahsoka? You know the ending of Ahsoka where they're going up into the temple and they've got all the night troopers there? Holy shit, what are they doing? You know, I may rag on it though, but I do love Star Wars. Yeah, that was the Rebel Moon is what it was called. Rebel Moon. It basically is Star Wars. It's like Star Wars Warhammer. The Clone Wars 3D animation movie. That was in theaters? Really? I'm watching the Clone Wars series right now just because I decided now is the time. It's good. It's long, but it's good. Well, you know why they handled them in the show the way they did? Because they watered it down. That's why. They watered it down. It's like your generic zombie stormtrooper. You know? It is what it is. When you have a show with a bunch of like big named characters, I don't think you make it too hard to watch. In a sense that like you don't have to think, it's just kind of like zombie. I've seen the Bad Batch, yeah. Also, they weren't even called Night Troopers. They're called Death Troopers, yeah. What are the ones that look like robotic black stormtroopers? Like their armor is just like pure black. What are those called? Dark Troopers. Oh, no shit, eh? Dark Trooper. Okay. Hey, Disloyal, thank you, buddy. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's good news. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, sir. Yeah, they were robots. Well, they had like two versions of them. They had the ones with like Moff Gideon. Well, actually, no. I think that's the same one. I think they were called Purge Troopers back in the day. I think that's what I was trying to reference. Hey, but Disloyal, thanks again, man. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you, sir. Always here supporting me. Always, always. Peddling spice. It was a suit you wore. I think that's what I was referencing. It was like this big, chunky, blocky stormtrooper suit that was black, and it had like a jetpack or something, like thrusters, and it was very big. Very, very big. I just don't remember. Dark Trooper Mark II? Yeah, something like that. All right, well, the song's about to be over, and I am 3 more Yeah, I mean, this is like good middle stage. Good middle stage. 2 more of these, and I think we're mostly done scraping the organ gun. I have to go back and, like, really thoroughly clean it up after that, but, like, there's no pieces to this thing. This is super easy. There's literally no pieces. Like, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 pieces compared to the gyrocopter's, like, 50. I could be talking out of my ass, but I think that's how that was. I mean, either way, man, lore, you got to go back and reference something. You know, you can speak from memory, which is kind of hard to do sometimes, knowing how vast Star Wars is, Warhammer is, stuff like that. If it's fresh in your memory or fresh on your mind, maybe you'll get it a little bit more accurate, but I don't like how they handled Plo Koon in the movies. He got one scene. Well, that's what they... You know what? They fleshed out a lot of characters in Clone Wars, and then when it came to the movie, it's like, do you remember that guy? Nobody cares. Or rather, the movie came out, what? Before the Clone Wars. Right? They don't really... Unless it's a big-named actor, and it's characters people know of, they're not going to give them much screen time, right? They're kind of just going to be there, die, and that's it. And then they're going to have a show afterwards, kind of show, like, the life of them and where they've been and what they've done. And you kind of know how it ends because you've seen the movie. Yeah, I hate that shit too, but, like, it is what it is, you know? Anyways, guys, I got to go. It's about 12:30 a.m. I'm going to be busy tomorrow. I will try and stream on both channels, but I'm just way too slogged. Like, it's too much. There's too much shit going on right now. We've only got about a week more to kind of be here and finish things up, and then we're going to be back in July. July 1st indefinitely, which means you're going to get both streams on both channels every day and more. So the only reason I'm busy right now is because we're trying to get this place cleaned up, ready, spacious for Mochi, because Mochi's going to be joining us here. We're trying to get out old furniture, replace things, clean up walls, clean up kitchens, whatever, man. We got shit to do. So that's the goal. Yeah, Grievous, again, I'm not going to sit here and talk too much about it, but Grievous was cool in that Clone Wars animation. Like, that guy, everyone was cool. I mean, they even had Dirge, right? The fucking bounty hunter, and he was badass, so. Oh, well. Anyways, folks, I'm out of here. Be well, stay safe. I will catch you tomorrow, and have yourselves a good night.